We have now officially come to the end of the year 2023 and we're heading to 2024. I guess it's time to tell you about my 5 best and worst movies of this year, since you already know. Now, I haven't seen all the movies that were released this year. I only got to see a few, and there were others that I still want to watch. I didn't see all the movies that came out because I had lots to do, so only I checked a few that came out this year. A few that I was anticipated for, I did got around to watch. So in this list you'll see some movies that came out and you're probably familiar with, and this list is fully my opinion. So let's start off with the worst. Coming at number 5, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I have a confession to make. I said that I like this movie and I gave it a 10 out of 10. I have since been haunted by that thought ever since. I watched it again and gave it a second try, and watching it, it kind of became like the worst and ended up not being for me. There's really a lot in this movie that wasn't great. The voice acting is very bad. Everyone was forgettable. Everybody was bad except Michael Keegan Key. Jack Black was great, and so was Charlie Day. They were great. Everybody else was bad. Seth Rogen was pretty annoying. Chris Pratt was pretty awful. Like, he didn't fit the role of Mario very well. He just sounds very boring, and it's to the point where I don't like Chris Pratt as an actor or as a voice actor anymore. He's just not my favorite and was never my favorite at all. I feel like they didn't told him to act, they just told him to be himself and nothing like Mario. So any animated movie that has Chris Pratt starring, I'm not really gonna be that excited for. Just like the Garfield movie, I'm really not looking for that, and I doubt that that's gonna be any good. So I don't know, I just don't see the hype for Chris Pratt or any movie that he's gonna be in. I just don't want to check it out. The plot is bland, and those references don't do anything to make it better. They just make it worse, which is what I expected to. The characters weren't interesting. They were just the same from the game. There was nothing different from them or anything. There were a lot of bad choices that were done before, like the music, which is probably the most annoying thing in this movie. They have like the most basic taste in here. License. They have the basic license taste ever, and it's like the most repetitive music we heard in all action and kids movies. Like, come on. I will move my review to a 3 out of 10 because I'm not gonna tell you what rating I gave this movie. I don't want to tell you. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 10. Or I never took this movie seriously. And yeah, there were people that were like gatekeeping people and saying that if you say that this movie is bad, then you're also bad, which is a pretty dumb excuse. Like, oh, it's a kids movie, it's supposed to be bad. I'm hearing that excuse a lot, and it's a pretty dumb excuse. Like, there are plenty kids movies out there that are liked by everybody, and they do a brilliant job. Other than this movie, I hate it. I don't like it. Next on my number 4 is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Quantumania is honestly a movie that has nothing going for it. The villain king isn't as menacing or anything. The plot is very forgettable and boring. The characters are whatever, not important or that interesting. And yeah, I don't know why this is here. It's a forgettable movie. I don't know if it's the worst from all the other Marvel hero shows or movies. I haven't seen the Marvels or any of the shows from Marvel this year, but this is the worst one I watched so far from them. I might give the Marvels a chance, or maybe not, because I'm not looking forward to that movie. Marvel just makes their movies so unwatchable and uses the same formula again and again until the sun blows. So yeah, this movie sucks. I don't know what to say. It's just boring. There's no need for it to be made. Next on my number 3 is Five Nights at Freddy's. This movie's not great, nor was it okay like others make it out to be. It was all bad. Just by watching the trailer, I said this is not for me. I still like the games, but how can you even make a horror movie and make it absolutely awful, uninspiring, and soulless? This movie feels more like a Marvel movie. There's no seriousness, and I'm not saying that you can't have any funny, goofy moments in your movie, but at least make them work and at least try making the movie good, exciting, scary, thrilling, like something. The horror in this movie doesn't work. It's not scary. I already said that before. It's all poorly done, like if the movie was actually made for toddlers. This movie fails at being a horror movie, and it's much more like a comedy. Every scene in this movie, it's very lame. Everything felt poorly acted and everything felt predictable. The final fight where they revealed who behind that bunny suit is, I already saw it coming. But what I did not saw coming was Vanessa being daughter of Williams. Kinda felt dumb, but interesting. The story sucks and it's uninteresting and unappealing. This movie felt more like a spoof movie, like scary movie kind of film. This movie sucks, everything about it sucks except the animatronics designs, and Josh Hutcherson at least gave his best job, try to give his best performance. Those are the only compliments I have for the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie, was a disaster, and it was awful. Thank you. Number 2, The Exorcist Believer. The Exorcist Believer is a huge pile of disaster and turd. Remember that this movie was bought for $400 million by Blumhouse, and I guarantee it's not gonna make that money back. They're really trying to cash grab off the original and do a trilogy like Halloween, but both Halloween and The Exorcist are both different identities. Horror movies are no surprise for being horrible. This movie massively fails more at being a horror movie. All the jump scares and horror effects are so lame. They don't make you jump or feel any kind of goosebumps or any fear like the original did. The acting and characters are pretty weak, and yeah. Also, bringing back the original characters are not gonna help this movie. It's not surprising, it's expected, because this is a final trilogy to the Exorcist franchise, the old ones, the old movies. This is the most unnecessary movie ever. We didn't ask for it, we didn't need it. I don't think anyone ever asked for an exorcism religious movie, and it's always the example of why religious movies never work. Overall, this is the most disappointing and unnecessary movie ever. Thanks. Now, coming in number 1, Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. I remember when the trailer came out for this movie, it was gonna be the most unappealing movie ever, and boy, it was. It was unappealing and very, very, very unsatisfying and upsetting because the trailer ruined everything. Whoever made the trailer looks like the people involved in this movie really didn't care about it because they spoiled the villain and the twist, which we could see from the beginning. Apparently this trailer is the whole movie, the whole entire movie at this point. I'm not a huge fan of the character designs. The characters are not important or anything, they're just bland characters. They try to be funny, charismatic, or relatable, or favorite, but never really. The plot is basically The Little Mermaid but in reverse, because this time the mermaid is a villain and the octopus is a hero. But overall, this movie is definitely awful, useless, boring, and a waste of time. And that's all I have to say about this movie, and it deserves to be on my top 5 of the worst movies of 2023. Also, I'm gonna give an honorable mention for the worst movie, and that is Elemental. The movie really made me feel bored and done with it at this point. It almost put me to sleep. Like, if you're having trouble sleeping, I think you should put this movie on because it could help you sleep faster. This movie is just predictable and there's nothing interesting about it. It was lame, boring, uninteresting, predictable, and lame, and lazy, and yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Do better, Pixar and Disney. Thank you. Alright, now we finally talked about my 5 worst movies and my honorable mentions. Time to move on to my best 5 movies of this year, including the honorable mentions. First off, number 5, we have Barbie. I think everything in this movie was great. It felt humorous and there was really lots of good energy in this movie coming from all the actors, and the set design looks impressive. The costuming on everybody looks great. The humor landed really well. It's the dialogue that makes this movie entertaining. This movie had an ending that I didn't expect. Do I think it deserves a sequel? No, I don't think it deserves a sequel because it's better off like that, but of course the studio will probably make a sequel. Number 4 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This movie is amazing and there's no denying it. The writing and the story is interesting and the animation is amazing. I love all the details and all the effects of the movie's animation. Miguel and the Spot were very great villains, and they set up the stakes for this movie. So is every character well written in this movie. Next on my number 3 is Saw X. I think Saw X is probably the best Saw movie in the Saw franchise. It does what no other Saw movie does. They make the characters feel unlikable and we actually get to root against them. They make the unlikable characters feel more like the villains, and they do get their justice served. The setting where this takes place is great, and this movie keeps the quality style of the other past Saw movies, like the green and red and yellow effect that happens on screen. The traps are really well made and make you feel tense, like on the edge of your seat. The ending twist I think was alright. So I do think that this is the best Saw movie. I am a bit nervous with the sequels that they have, but I think that it may go downhill from here. Next on my number 2 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think we could all agree that this is the best Marvel movie we had so far. I haven't seen any new Marvel property except Quantumania and the past Phase 4, but this is what I loved. The movie felt simple, but I think that there was a lot of good quality content. Everybody was memorable as they were. The Rocket Raccoon backstory is so great. The fighting, action, cinematography is decent, and the story was simple. I feel like they tried to make the comedy land, but it sometimes did and sometimes didn't. I have to say that the licensed music choices were not great. Like I mentioned, they were repetitive, but I really enjoyed the movie. It's It's always been anticipated for my top favorite movies of 2023. I love what James Gunn did, and I wish him the best for the DC reboot because I don't know if I'll watch that. But yes, I love this movie. I love the content. I loved everything about it. And finally, number one is Maestro. Maestro is a movie that I think has recently come out on Netflix. This movie is probably the best movie I've ever watched. I love the cinematography, the shifting from one setting and transitioning to another setting felt great. The orchestra music in here sounds wonderful. I honestly love all the music in here. The performances were decent, everybody knew how to act. I also love the first and middle part of the film cinematography because it's all black and white and it does transition to like color, but we have like a square frame instead of a wide view until the last part, which felt downgrading in my opinion. But it doesn't stop the movie from being good. I also find this movie kind of emotional. I find it heartwarming. I love the story narrative here about a life of a music composer. So yeah, a lot of good things about this movie, about this film. That was a lot that I enjoyed, and it deserves to be on number one on my top 5 of favorite movies of the year. And finally, we have honorable mentions. My honorable mentions are Beau is Afraid, Skinamarink, and Oppenheimer. Beau is Afraid, I think, is the movie that nobody loves, but it's made by Ari Aster, so that's my only bias. But I decided to put my bias away and see if he delivered anything, and was honestly pleased with this movie, and I was satisfied with it. I really enjoyed everything about it. It had a dark, chaotic tone to it. Everything was crazy, and it turned into a dark murder or violent act. So to me, this movie is a controversial pick to have on my favorite of 2023. There might be some people out there who might love it or might hate it. It has an audience for it, and I'm one of those audiences. Skinamarink went under the radar for a lot of people, and probably a lot of people don't know about this movie. I did have a good experience with this movie. It has a lot of unique shots and unique directing. I don't like that this movie was an hour and 40 minutes long. I think it would be better if it was cut down to like 20 minutes. Something in those scenes, the movie does drag down and sometimes doesn't become interesting. I think we could agree that this movie had some good sound design. The sound design is what makes this movie more scary sound like. The grainy filter in this movie does make the atmosphere of this movie scary and vintage. It's like being inside someone's head or a nightmare. I do like this movie, and it's probably my most favorite horror movie of this year. A lot of people might say that it came out last year, but it came out this year in theaters and in Shudder. I kind of feel like rewatching it again at this point. Of course, I had to include Oppenheimer in here, and definitely deserved to be in the list as my honorable mention. Oppenheimer did absolutely live up to the hype. The performances were outstanding. Cillian Murphy did a great job. Everyone did pretty decent performances here. The film's score was amazing. The film has pretty great shots and visuals that didn't lack. Overall, this movie was amazing, and I loved it, and definitely lived up to the hype. And that is it for my top 5 movies of 2023, worst and best, in my opinion. Let me know what you think. Let me know your movies, your top 5 movies, or more than 5. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later.